and hello everyone watching on socials, on X, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. Today, Michiel and I are just having a chat and reminiscing around our privacy roots. People who have been around Profila for a while understand that we started with the ambition to solve for privacy. So today we're just going to take a journey back to 2017 when we actually started the project and just walk you through some of the key milestones of our privacy agenda and how it has not changed. And privacy is still the core of what Profila is trying to achieve. So I think maybe before we kick off, Michiel, there was the first time I met you was in Belgium at I think the IAPP event in 2017, and we went for a cocktail after the event, right? I think that was first meeting.
This is a good question. People who know me will know that I have a very bad memory. In my mind, it was in Geneva, I think in the dining room of CERN. Is that
That's
not
right.
possible?
That's
No?
right.
Dining
No,
room
it
of
is.
CERN,
It
and then
was
we did.
Yeah, I think it was. So let me start my privacy journey then. So it's with Profila in 2017, I took the opportunity to take a package from a good employer because the concept for Profila actually went back to 2006. And when I tell the story, people are amazed. It's like you've been thinking about this stuff forever. And it was in a telco building a platform for hosted cloud services. And we were innovating and building a business unit within the telco. And we got hold of some Google search servers from someone at the time who's a great influencer and mind in South Africa, Stafford Macy, was running Google back then. And the power of these Google search servers was phenomenal. So we started exploring search as a service for enterprise. And through that project, I realized just the power of technology. And if you let it loose on an enterprise environment and it can search and index every piece of data, and being in a telco, there's a huge amount of data that can be indexed and searched. It gave me that original wake-up call in 2006 and 7, which is, our personal data and data is very vulnerable to systems and processes and people. And I think that's where the privacy bug started. I've still got some old decks. I was thinking of showing them today, but they're a little bit embarrassing. Of the first presentations for Profila, it was called mycentralrecord.com, which dates me a bit. And I remember presenting this to some investors back in the days there in 2010. 9 and getting interesting feedback. A lot of people then were talking about vaults and looking after data and data storage, but nothing as mature as we have today and ease of use as we have today. So I think that was the spark for my privacy mission in Profila, was really seeing how powerful these tools are. And I think people still don't understand how many servers Google and Facebook and these companies have that store the internet, okay, and that can index and search every single thing. Now, I think the aha moment for people has come now where they interact with the AI large language models, and the tools, because they're used to type anything and within an instant, anything is available to you. And that just shows how far we have come in a decade. 10 years is a very short part of time, actually. So from there, in 2015, I actually registered the company just as an idea for Profila on how do we solve this issue of privacy. And 2017, as mentioned at the beginning of the call, I took the opportunity to solve for privacy in terms that we used to use for big projects in Vodafone at the time I was working was a BHAG. So it was a very big, hairy, audacious goal. And for those who knew me in career-wise, I was always pushing the limits of trying to be the rainmaker, the solution crafter, or the innovator. Exited out of two smaller opportunities, started some business units within some companies, failed a couple of times. But this time really took a different approach to the project. Didn't have an idea of what we were going to build, but knew I had to solve for privacy. And that's where I listed a co-founder ad on AngelList in 2017, and Michiel answered. So Michiel, tell me what was the first thing that struck your mind when you saw this random guy putting up an ad for a lawyer as a co-founder?
Yeah, I just also exited another startup, and I was going for a 6 month project in Switzerland, working for CERN as a tech transfer lawyer. And I quickly realized that CERN, being an institutional entity, that's not necessarily the same as a law firm in terms of working hours. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and apart from sports, I looked for something else challenging. And then I found your ad looking for a data privacy lawyer to co-found a startup with. And I've, as a privacy lawyer, I've looked at GDPR and even legislation pre-GDPR more from a client perspective, large company coming to a law firm saying, look, we have this huge pile of personal information from the past, and we regularly process personal information from our customers. And now this GDPR thing is coming. We heard about these 2 to 4% fines of your global turnover. This is huge. We need to tackle this. We need a DPO. We need a privacy compliance program. We need data mapping. We need data processing agreements, impact assessment, legitimate interest assessment, all of that. And so for multiple years, I worked then with large corporate clients to figure out what is a GDPR compliant way of running your business and cleaning up the data that we had from the past, or that they had from the past. And I quickly saw that they just saw it actually as a legal check the box. Every couple of years in the EU, there's a new regulation or a new directive, and then everybody just tries to fix it, make sure they don't get any fines or often worse, reputational damage for not being compliant. Because these large organizations, they're big on compliance. But I read a lot of things in the GDPR that made it seem as though the regulator already understood the issue, understood what was going on the internet, understood that was not the best way forward. A perfect example is all of the data subject rights that were included in the GDPR, which allow you as an individual to ask questions to a brand. What do you have about me? What are you doing with my data? Please rectify it if it's wrong. Please transfer it to another service provider if I want to move service providers. Principles about information, principles like transparency, accountability, proportionality, data minimization, all these things that are for the customer. And then also obligations in the GDPR that require companies to actually reach out to their consumers and tell them about these rights, tell them in a transparent way how they're processing personal data from their customers. But what did these companies do? They actually just wrote very detailed privacy policies that are, of course, hidden away a little bit on the website. They're in a footer down, nobody reads them, they're very long. And then a company thought, okay, now I'm GDPR compliant because I put somewhere an Excel sheet in the privacy policy that said these are the AWS and whatnot third-party companies that are accessing your data. And now you know, now I've been transparent and now I've informed you. But in reality, of course, you're not informing no one. And the fact that you have an Article 13 in your privacy policy, which says there you have data subject rights and you can exercise them by writing privacy@company.com, nobody will find this information, nor do they know what to do. And so when I saw your ad, heard about what you're trying to do, I directly thought this is finally a tool that has the consumer side in mind, that would give some kind of tool to a consumer to effectively use the GDPR in its favor. And so I was very intrigued to use my more legal business experience working around the GDPR to do something very practical. And I think that's what we've been doing. And now we've gone a long journey, way further than only the GDPR and privacy. But it's still an important part of the platform. And as we'll show later with the demo, or as we can show later with the short demo, it's still embedded in almost every process of our app.
I think that's important too, because some people who know us and the project, it's taken a while, but we've done a lot of research and official research, private research, prototypes, and understanding what is going to be the right new tool set or process or approach to actually solving for a significant issue that is privacy. And it's strange that it's getting less of the limelight now. The antagonists in 2018 and 19 was Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, and it's interesting. I forget the name of it, but there was this one New York Times article that I read that privacy and the size of the dilemma is actually too big for most people to comprehend, and hence, we just succumb and we click cookies. Yes, okay. And people also vote with their usage. So usage behavior hasn't stopped because it's like, well, everyone else is doing it. What should I do? And Facebook shares still continue to rise. So there's almost a silent acceptance that this is, the fate of the internet. And that's what I think's fueled Profila for such a long time, is that from the beginning, we said we have to create an alternative for companies. And that's what we started exploring for day one, is how do we create an alternative for companies to put their customer first? Everyone says that, and if you work in any customer organization, it's like, my customer is king, my customer is first, until I want your money and until I want your data. then it's like, you're my customer. And to change that psyche around and say, well, I'm not yours, brand. I am a sovereign individual and I have rights that I now want to exercise. But also not being fanatical about privacy, because on the one side, you've got like people who are obsessive. And I think that's where some of our mission statement came from, is the first thing that every human has is agency. So human agency comes first, then privacy, because you can choose to what level of privacy you want in your personal and digital life, and in exchange for value. And that's what started us on the journey. But Michiel, let's take a recap as to some of our first projects. With CERN, actually, Michiel was working at CERN as an IP lawyer, and then you got introduced to David and the privacy department. So just give a quick background as to what we did there.
Yeah, so the context, of course, for those who don't know CERN stands for Centre Européen de Recherche Nucléaire, or in English, the European Center for Nuclear Research. And CERN is the largest scientific experiment in the world. It's the home of the Large Hadron Collider and a lot of other proton accelerators. And so in principle, it's just a scientific exercise looking for the Higgs boson first, and then the standard model. But what you don't know maybe about CERN is that it's a city by itself. So it's an entire village. You have more than 2,000 people who consider themselves an employee. But then you have maybe, I think, 15 or 20,000 researchers that are part of research institutes worldwide who intern at CERN or who do a part of their PhD at CERN. So there's tens of thousands of people walking around. Then you have about 100,000 people visiting CERN on a yearly basis. You have suppliers and service providers. And so the personal data that CERN is collecting from all of these, let's say, data subjects is huge. But the problem now is that it's different departments collecting it, storing it in different ways. Their IT infrastructure is not streamlined everywhere. So they don't necessarily know what they have about each individual. But they also have medical data about their employees, especially because they're in such a special environment. And our initial, let's say, exercise with CERN was trying to be this tool in between CERN and all of these data subjects. Data subject standing for just you, me, an employee, a contractor, a researcher, where if the individual had a question about how CERN was using its personal data, to give them the right answer. So you can consider it a bit as the AI chatbots we have today. We were building the first version of that, where in the backend you had all of the CERN policies and all of the CERN documentation. So you had their privacy policies, their operational circulars, just articles about how they use personal information, so that if you would ask a question, it would give you an answer, and you would understand about what CERN is doing with your personal information collected. So we did about a research project to try to better understand this communication with what you could consider a brand. We call that a brand today. A brand could be a commercial entity, but also an NGO or even your doctor. how one entity processes personal data of the other and how you then communicate about that use.
Sorry, I was on mute there. So yeah, that was the core project that kicked us off with what is the app, and chatbots were the rage back then, and now they've come back in with AI empowering it. But we went quite a long way, and we actually have a cool agreement just to show, because it's definitely something worthwhile seeing. Is you can share here. So we had a collaboration agreement with CERN for a significant duration between CERN and Profila. And the consideration was around the purpose of the MVP and the deliverables we had to deliver. And this was at our own mutual cost. So there was no sponsorship and cost involved. We bore our own cost, and we got time from CERN's privacy department. But we had to go through quite a process to understand their legals, their T's and C's, objectives. And it really gave us a deep dive, and with David's help, who was running the privacy department, on what is the problem that we're actually trying to solve. So that I think got us thinking in the right way, Michiel, which was, are we going to be able to solve an industry problem? And I remember we culminated the project, and you can see we did a lot of work packages and privacy ontologies and models and data sets, integration with systems. So it was an in-depth project, I think, which allowed me at the end, from a solutions architecture background, to be able to say, okay, how is this going to be meaningful to a company, and how did many companies adopt it? And we closed out this project with a big presentation at CERN, where we had IAPP members, which is the International Association of Privacy Professionals, attending. And in the audience, we asked, so who wants to be able to manage their privacy rights and tell companies what they do and don't want? And everyone put up their hands, representing very big companies. And then we asked the same question, well, how are you as a company going to execute that? And then there was a lot of debate, okay, because I don't think people understand how much data they have until they were forced, like Michiel said, through the GDPR process, to go and at least audit what they believe they have, and then to, on paper, become compliant. But I know many companies still haven't gone through the process of actually structuring their data in a way that they understand what they have and how they're giving customers rights and controls. Some great startups came up at that stage, helping with the cookie consent management and consent form process, I think became the most mature. But I don't know a single customer that can tell you that when I go to a company's site that it's personalized for me, and I don't feel like I'm losing my data to that company. And that's still the dilemma that we face, is the internet wasn't designed for this type of control layer. It was designed for interaction and access to data. So that was an interesting next project that I embarked on for quite a while. And I think many people may remember it as the contract for the web that Tim Berners-Lee kicked off at that similar phase, where there was several sessions around how do we build a better internet. And that was cool because we were already collaborating with CERN in Geneva, which was the birthplace of the web. And then we took place in this project, which actually, let me get it up here. Where is it? There. So if I share. So in the contract for the web, we took part in the privacy and data rights working group as Profila. And the group members were significant, from Cloudflare, DreamHost, Microsoft, Government of France was represented, Kenya, Germany government. Facebook was in several of our calls as well. I'm trying to see if they were listed. But there was a humble Profila at the bottom, with all of these people. And for us, at such an early phase of a project, it really opened our eyes as to what are these bigger institutions and governments and countries thinking about privacy. And at the end of the day, the contract came out as quite a reasonable document. The principles were listed, and the document itself put forward an approach that many companies signed up, and it was a big PR event. But then what happened after that? Nothing. It's like it's gone. And that was the challenge of any system that you build, isn't it? Is how do you make a commitment to a process become adopted? And I think through these two projects, which was sitting on this process for quite a while, building out prototypes on chatbots, speaking to companies around what does privacy actually mean, and how does a company adopt it, led us to our next research projects. And we're quite proud of some of the key research we've done. But one which was a turning point was with the University of St. Gallen, and their MBA students actually did a research on our business model, which was more, we want to do a privacy, is privacy and data important to people, and come back and understand how can we monetize this. And the summary of the research was pretty cool because they did peer research and interviews, and it came back saying that, yeah, privacy is important, but we're apathetic and we don't know what to do about it. It's too hard to manage. And second is, we know data is valuable, but how much is it worth, in what context in life? And it's not worth a couple of dollars. The effort to maintain that is not worth it. But the main thing that they said was, we want value. Okay, so if there's going to be an exchange, and the industry is starting to understand this now, that if there's going to be an exchange of data, exchange of attention, sacrificing of a little bit of privacy, then I want something back. And that was the foundation for what Profila has become, is a place for a person to create a profiler, which is a data set about yourself, and exchange it with companies for value, but on your terms, and in a way that makes it easy for brands to adopt and scale. So that was the challenge on two clashing worlds coming together. But I think the research after that, Michiel, was we still took the chatbot project from CERN, and we wanted to mature that into how do we get AI involved. So this was before the ChatGPT boom, and in 2019, we started with a project, and Michiel championed a lot of this, but we wanted to create an AI knowledge base for what we learned from the chatbot, because we understood that there's a lot of privacy policies, people don't understand it. And we signed up with the University of Lucerne to get a grant from the Swiss government through their Inner Swiss program, which was a great learning for us too, and a successfully delivered project. But Michiel, do you want to maybe just give a summary of what the AI project was about for privacy, because it follows on nicely from our objectives from the chatbot in CERN.
Yeah, sure. So InnoSwiss is the Swiss Innovation Agency. For those Europeans out there, it's a bit like Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020. It's governmental grants investing in research that has a commercial use case in the country. And so what we pitched is a smart knowledge base with machine learning and NLP, where again, this chatbot would go to the next level. There would be more content behind it, and the interaction would be better, and the information that would come out would be more clear. So we collected about 1 million documents, which was largely privacy policies. So about 600,000 privacy policies from companies. So it's a large data set that we have. And then also privacy legislation from different regions, decisions from privacy authorities or recommendations, privacy articles. And so it has like two layers. First, you as a user, you could ask a normal question. For example, you could say, I'm parking my car here on the parking lot of the Migros supermarket, and I see that there's a camera. Are they allowed to film my license plate? And do they keep this data? And if you would ask a question like that, the chatbot would figure out that you're asking a question in Switzerland about a Swiss supermarket called Migros. They would go to the privacy policy of Migros. They would go look if there's anything about collection of personal information via the cameras. They would go look into Swiss privacy legislation or in Swiss legislation about having cameras and what you could and what you could not do. And then based on the most relevant document, it would give you an answer to your question. And then for that, you would have to pay like scraps, like a couple of cents or maybe €0.50. And if your question would go unanswered, in a second instance, you could go to a privacy expert and they could help you as well. It was about a project of about 2 years to collect all of this information, of course. That was the first step, collect all of these policies, scrape a lot of them online, and then create some kind of logic to figure out what is the best document, what is the best piece in the document, and how to display it.
So I think it was a cool project, and I'll share again here just to show off some of the outcomes. But for us, it as you can see, it started with a mission statement first, and on our website we've got a research labs page with our research projects that we've done that have made an impact on the business. But the first two was this primary research, as we call it, around an NLP. So this is terminology from the industry, but a natural language processing approach for privacy and customer education. And the research came out as a question answering tool for website privacy policy comprehension. What it ended up is that the team actually extended the project by 6 months because there was a new approach we wanted on how do you ask questions of a data set but still keep the integrity of the data. With these new AI tools coming in and the language models especially, when you're asking a legal question, it has to be an exact response. You can't have a made-up response. And I think the large language models are getting much better at it, but a unique outcome of this research project was a technique on being able to search and do a semantic search into a legal data set and extract the actual sentences in context with the question that was asked. And that was a unique and a novel approach to doing it based on the professor's research. And it was actually awarded last year, or in 2023, a certificate from the International Conference of HCI, Human Computing Interfaces for Cybersecurity and Privacy and Trust, for the novel approach to this semantic search. So we've actually got this IP now handed over in 2024. And last year, we hired a team of AI specialists from Ghana who just graduated or just come out of university, some leading AI students. And it's another project which I'll present with the team another day. But we took this research and extended it in a way to say, how do I ask a better question of a legal data set using the tool that we've got? But at the end result is, and as we've got a demonstrable platform which will be integrated into Profila later in this year, is we're using an LLM like Claude to compose a better legal question. So it doesn't actually go and look for the answer. It's using its capability and its natural language for composing a better question. Then we're building a knowledge base. Okay, and this is what many investors have said will become the most important assets in the future, is a verified knowledge base. Like Michiel said, we've got about 1 million privacy policies in there that trained and refined this tool. And we linked this asking of a question, so composing a question with the large language model, to then be able to use the semantic search to go and find the right extract. Okay, so it extracts, like you see in some of the extracts now in these searches, from the actual website and saying this is the best match of an answer, and it gives its weightings and probabilities. And then what we've also built into that is a human reinforcement loop. So in our whole ecosystem, we'll have a way for lawyers to be able to come in and say, well, the answer that was given to that question asked is good or not. But then we've also got a process in place for how we vet the people that are answering these questions. So was it a privacy professor versus somebody who's just graduated in privacy, or was it somebody's opinion? Because human reinforcement can't just be anyone. You have to have experts, and then you have to have different types of interpretations to be able to have true reinforcement. So what we have as a maturing asset actually is probably a significant knowledge base around privacy. And we also duplicated that, Michiel, for crypto law. So we can now build in Profila knowledge bases behind our own tool set for specific verticals. And what's exciting for me is this AI capability, which isn't like other models. We can build an agent and so on in front of it, but it's more focused on how do you build the knowledge base and extract facts out of a knowledge base. So it's more of a fact-based AI tool versus taking the typical approach. And for us, that was interesting because in Profila, you'll build a profiler, which is your own data. And I see a future where we'll apply this tool to being able to use your profiler data set as its knowledge base, but only for you, okay, as an individual. So not even Profiler will get access to it, but you can start interacting and asking questions of your own data, which is factual over time. And in that way, we can really, really help each individual around the world build a knowledge base about themselves. But with all of our privacy preserving layers on top of it, so that nobody else has access to it and nobody else can benefit from it. And this is an unintended benefit to the company because we started this project before the AI boom, and the outcome has now become more and more viable and interesting on how do we use AI with personal data. We've got some other ideas which Luke and the team will share in another stream later this week around AI prompts. Because for AI to be relevant, it needs context of the question you're asking. And that's what we're perfecting here is how do we help a human to add the relevant context to the question so that a tool can give you an answer, but without sacrificing privacy. So yeah, that was a very interesting 2.5-year project, which the team put a lot of work into, and we've got some significant credentials and AI IP in the business, which will benefit our privacy mission going forward in the research side. And I think that was key for us, Michiel, as to what do we do next? What is the next research project in your mind?
I thought we were going to give a demo about the privacy section. I think we're so busy now that the platform is ready and our token is on the market in a couple of days. I think we're so busy with that aspect, trying to pitch to brands on how to use the platform, that in my humble opinion, a research project can maybe wait for a couple of months.
That said, though, we did last year apply for a EU Horizon grant with a consortium. It was an interesting consortium of Partisia, a blockchain that we like a lot as well. We work with Cardano mainly, but Partisia is a privacy chain, and they've got some cool multi-party computation capabilities. And we partnered with another university and some other business entities to evolve what we had as Profiler, but also then introducing these other layers of control in your personal data into the Profiler platform, aligned with the EU's missions around controlling data spaces, digital ID logins. But what the EU hasn't focused on yet, which we will apply again for the next grants that come around, is the usability layer of how do companies help their customers adopt a user-friendly platform that can actually enable privacy. So yeah, Michiel, we will end off on just quickly showing the platform privacy section. We've had quite a few demos before. That's one of the brands that are trialing with us in South Africa. But in the platform, as mentioned, we cover your personal data, we cover your relationship with brands, we cover how you get compensated in the Zeek token for your data and attention. But all of that was built around, well, I've got personal data in here. How do I manage and control my privacy? So Michiel, do you want to talk us through just the rights process and what our vision for the future of this is? Because at the moment it's focused on GDPR.
Yeah, so few people know what the DSRs or data subject rights are, but it's a couple of rights that the GDPR puts forward and that now privacy legislations around the world have copied as well, which allow you as an individual to take a bit of control of your information that is being stored and used by a company. So here you can see you have a right to information, meaning you have the right to ask a company to give you information about what they have. You have the right to be forgotten. That's a more famous one. And that means you have the right to tell a company to delete the data that they have about you so that they don't know anymore who you are. For example, you have the right to the rectification, which means if you have a company that has the wrong information about you, or if you maybe potentially move houses and you want to give a new address, then you can exercise that right. You have a right to object. So under certain situations, you can tell a company to stop processing your information, to stop sending you, for example, brand content. And again, first of all, people don't really know what this is. That's why we have a privacy education section on our website with small 1 to 2 minute explainer videos explaining to you what is privacy, what are your rights, how can you exercise them, in which situations can you exercise them. And then once you understand what it means, you have this Amazon one-click process where instead of going to the privacy policy of a brand on their website and looking for an email address and then typing out an email with what, I don't know, a text that describes what you're asking, we just allow you to search for a brand on our platform. So you could, for example, look for Nike or for Red Bull or something. You click on the logo of the brand. Then you just click on one of the rights that you want to exercise, for example, right to information. You continue to the next screen, which explains to you a couple of important details. For example, that companies cannot charge you for it if you don't excessively use this tool. That a company can ask you for an identification to make sure that it's you asking, for example, your data to be deleted. That company has about 30 days usually, especially in the GDPR, to respond to your request. So they can take a little bit of time, but they shouldn't take 6 months. And that there are certain situations where they might not be able to abide by your request. Let's say you ask for your data to be deleted, but a company might need to keep a little bit of financial information about your transactions for 7 years, which might be a legal requirement for them. Then that could be the situation as well. So this is just a bit of context before you go into the right. And then when you confirm, you just create the right. That was it. A couple of clicks, and in the backend, we will then send off a legal document to a brand explaining this right in more detail, explaining who asked it, explaining the context why they asked it. And we then log in the backend. We then log on the platform whether the company responded to it. So you have a bit of a ledger of every interaction you had. So imagine you click an unsubscribe today at the bottom of an email. You have no ledger of this. You have no proof that you clicked on it. The difference here is every time you exercise a right with a specific brand, you'll just have a list with all of these requests. And then you can keep track of what you asked them, when you asked them something, and then if they responded, yes or no.
Perfect. Thanks, Michiel. And yeah, on this process, what we do at the moment is we send a legally drafted letter to the brand's privacy email address and to the individual who's sending the right. And we ask the two parties to sort it out between them. So we're not trying to get in the way of the process. We're just helping customers with an easier flow. And then our designs for the backend is that we will allow a brand in future to come along and to answer these requests live on the platform. So I think there's a lot we're going to add here. The AI search tool will come here where you can start asking questions of the privacy knowledge base that will be added in. And there are some paid functions in that too, where we'll use a bit of Zeek, for example, that if you want to get a legal advice on a question around privacy, we will be linking that to our AI tool and the AI search in the future, so that it can empower people. So we've been very conscious throughout the platform on the design. Technically, the architecture is sound as far as how people can protect their data, how they can earn Zeek and cash for their time and attention. But more importantly, it's about the value that you get in exchange for your time and attention, but without sacrificing privacy. And that was always the golden rule for Profila, is if we're going to build something, it needs to be in a way that's easy for a brand to adopt. And this platform, we can set up a company and get their first invite to customers to join and the first campaign running in 10 minutes. Okay, and it cuts out the need for a lot of companies, especially SMEs, to worry about data privacy because the customer is owning and managing the data, but on an easily accessible platform. So no more do you need CRMs, no more do you need to worry about customer data privacy. All you get is access to the relevant data, and then you can target your customers with the content that they're asking for. So I really do think that we've got a novel approach to a very big industry, and we'll be able to, with privacy at the forefront, have a massive impact on the data and advertising industry once we once we start pushing hard, which we're starting to do. So I think this is part of a series just exposing people to the amount of research and work we've done over the years. And similar to Cardano, it's a research-based company. We don't have as many researchers as Cardano, but we've definitely done our homework as far as what we're going to build and how we're going to preserve privacy in the future. So we're very excited for our token event next week, but it's a conservative one. We're hoping to attract people to the platform and to incentivize with a large portion of the token to help people to build a profile and help people to learn how to protect their data, because that is your most valuable asset in the future, is data that's protected, that not every other internet or AI tool has access to. That becomes your gold. And that's what Profila is aiming to do in the first step. The second is match you up with brands that you want or need in your life so that you can get a service. It's not always going to be ads either. So we've done work in healthcare and in the banking industry and the legal industry, where this platform can be used, and you'll see in your feed there some feedback from your doctor or an offer from your pharmacy of certain types of medications for your healthcare, or it can be a legal notice from your lawyer saying that a case is resolved. So there are many other use cases that Profila can attend to, but we're tackling the main problem of advertising first, because we think that's the initial hook that many brands get stuck into of surveillance is, I need to go and find my customer. They panic. So we're offering them a different way to ask their customers for the data that they need. Michiel, any final words for you, and then we'll wrap up for today.
No. Thanks everybody for listening.
Awesome. Thanks everybody, and we'll speak to you on the next live space coming up soon.